You're listening to the BBC World Service. Next up on Outlook, let me introduce you to Seema Rao. For many years, she worked as a doctor in India. But at the same time, she would train commandos in the Indian Army in hand-to-hand combat. She's the first woman to do such a thing, and she does it for nothing. Seema's been telling me how she got into martial arts when she was a teenager.
In school, I was bullied and pushed around. There were these girls who would be bullying everybody in general, but, they'd come and whack you on your head with a hard cardboard book. They'd do all kinds of things like this. And I would retort, but nothing would happen. So I would feel very bad about the whole thing. And I would aspire to be strong. I would aspire to be in control. So that aspiration, that wanting to change myself stayed in me for a very long time till I met this young medical doctor who became my future husband. And he was into martial arts. So in the beginning, I used to watch him, and he used to teach all his colleagues and his juniors in college and medical school. And I would watch him in amazement and think, wow, that's what, strength is all about. I want to be able to hit that way. So one day I told him that I want to learn. So he said, okay. I started learning with him. Then obviously I joined a professional taekwondo class and I did my black belt. So the journey from weakness to strength started that way.
And when you talk about wanting to be strong and fight off the bullies, when did you get your first opportunity to do that?
This happened about 2 years after I had spent enough time in training. Near our house, there was a beach where you could go and, train. So during training, there were these 3 guys. They were just passing by and they passed some lewd remarks and, demeaning things. So I heard that, both of us heard that, but we continued training because we didn't want to put a stop to the training. As we started walking back, I saw the 3 guys. So my husband told me, okay, now it's your fight. I'm not going to do anything. So I was like, what? So as I walked past them, they again started saying things. To which I went ahead and I looked at the guy, stood in his path, and I slapped him. And that slap really shocked him. As I did that, he came to headbutt my face. I just moved back and lifted my knee straight onto his head. So that was the first time when I felt really strong. I felt in control. I felt on the top of the world.
What did your husband say to you afterwards?
He said, nothing, your battle has just begun. That's just the start.
But for you at that time, martial arts was just a hobby, wasn't it? I mean, you had ambitions to be a doctor and trained, became a doctor, and just kept the martial arts on the side. At what point did you think, I could volunteer to teach commandos how to fight?
Actually, my medical profession was on, and at the same time, my martial art was going on. We were also members of local sports clubs, and that's where I realized that I was quite a crack shot. So there was this chance meeting with some senior official in the police force, and he said, let me see what you can do. So that's when unarmed combat happened. From unarmed combat, we quickly shifted on to demonstrations on shooting. And then after that, we were invited to even impart training. So that's how the journey started.
How did the trainees react when you, a woman, turned up to tell them what to do?
That's a question I'm asked many times. In training, discipline is mandatory, so that's the first thing that has to be established. Most of the trainees are disciplined enough, but if a trainee does not, adhere to the rules of discipline, then I ask him to leave. Secondly, this field is very much a physical field in the sense that whatever that thing is that you want them to do, you have to first do it yourself. So you lead by personal example.
When you say you have to lead by personal example, does that mean you had to show them that you could beat them?
It means that if you're capable enough to do what you desire them to do, then they know that you're the boss.
I'm trying to get a picture of what it was like in those training sessions with these fit young men being shown what's what by you.
I always say this, that, men and women both, if you're in a profession, you need to prove yourself. It's the truth anywhere. And once you prove yourself by capabilities, I think, you've won the hearts of those, who are below you.
You and your husband are considered pioneers of close quarter battle. Is that like hand-to-hand combat?
Close quarter battle is battle at close quarters, in the sense 30 meters, extendable to 100 meters.
And what does it involve? What kind of techniques do you use?
One is unarmed combat, then the second part of it is shooting, and the third part would be some team-on-team tactics. The unarmed combat part involves techniques where you hit in order to cripple or maim or kill the opponent.
It sounds quite vicious. I mean, have you been injured doing this?
Yes, I've been injured twice. Once I had a fall during training and I had a head injury. And about 3 weeks I was in bed and I was in amnesia. I couldn't remember anything.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all. I didn't know where I lived. We had shifted to a new residence, so I couldn't remember the address. But the one thing I could remember was I could identify my husband. So that's one thing I didn't forget. And then besides that, there was one more time when I had a fall and I had a vertebral injury. That was about 3 months, 3 to 4 months I was in bed. But at both these times, I asked myself, do I want to go on? What would life be without all this? And the answer was very simple. I said, no, I'm going to go on. But there was one change I made. That is, I decided to have the quality imbibed in me, which is called as cautious boldness. To be bold, to go ahead and do what you want to do, but with caution.
The skills and the techniques that you've acquired over the years, which is the one that most impresses people? You know, we think of party tricks like, I know, shooting apples off people's heads and things like that. But what would you say is the thing that you take most pride in?
Shooting the apple off somebody's head.
You can do that?
Like I mentioned, I'm a crack shot, so I can do that, yeah.
How far away can that person be?
He could be about 15 yards, 20 yards away.
That's about the same in meters, isn't it? About 15 meters?
Yeah, 15, 20 meters, yeah.
Have you ever shot an apple off someone's head at that distance?
Yeah, I've done that.
Wow. You need a very steady hand, don't you?
Yeah, you need a steady hand and you need a steady mind, and you need to look only at the apple when you're doing that. And you need to not let fear come into your heart. I did that with my husband holding the apple over his head.
He must love you.
Yeah.
And know that you love him.
Yes, and he must be sure of my aim as well.
There's this other side to you, isn't there? You were a finalist in Mrs. India World Beauty Pageant in 2004. Why did you enter that?
Well, I believe life has many colors. So at the time, this Mrs. India World pageant was being introduced here, and they also said it's to do with women achievers and women who are married. So I said, okay, why not? And I went ahead for that, and I was a finalist, and it was a good experience.
What did you have to do?
Oh, I had to do everything that you do in a beauty pageant. Dress well, look well, walk the ramp. And I even flexed my biceps. So that's also what I did.
Did you make any concessions to enter that beauty pageant? I read somewhere that you refused to dye your hair.
I had a few streaks of grey, so I decided, no, let them be. I think beauty is a lot about inner strength, and it's not just the way you look, it's the way you are. It's the confidence, the strength that you exude, which makes a woman beautiful.
Seema Rao talking to me from Mumbai. You're listening to Outlook on the BBC World Service. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute.